Stephen Fulton was born on July 17, 1994, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He has a very respected amateur pedigree with an alleged record of 75 wins and 15 defeats. He is the current WBC and WBO champion at 122. Now, Stephen Fulton began his career on October 4th, 2014, taking on 0-2 Isaac Badger. He TKO'd him in the second round. He continued taking on lower-level opposition, winning all of those bouts before taking on someone December of 2015, taking on at the time 3-0-1 Joshua Greer. Greer was undefeated as well and building his way to the top also. It was a pretty competitive fight, but Fulton got the better of it, winning a majority decision. It was only 4 rounds, so Fulton didn't have too much time to take over. However, he did what he had to do and got the victory. He had a few victories after that before taking on fellow undefeated challenger 8-0 Adam Lopez 2017. This fight was on PBC in the winning fight. It was actually the preliminary card for John Pascal and Ahmed Albiali, and it was very back and forth with both fighters having a lot of success, a lot of action. One of the most entertaining fights Fulton's had in his career without my channel, and won a majority decision against Adam Lopez. Adam Lopez became a respected name, moving up in weight and doing very good against the likes of Oscar Valdez and Isaac Dogbe. After this, Fulton continued to rack up victory after victory before taking on 27-2 Paulus Ambunda before absolutely schooling him, winning every single round to a very wide unanimous decision victory. After this bout, they decided to match him up with another undefeated prospect, a guy that was relatively hyped by the PBC. His name was Isaac Avalar. He was coming out of Mexico, and at the time, he was being looked at as a respectable up-and-comer. He was relatively dominant in all of his bouts, and against Fulton, the commentary team, they wanted Avalar to win, and the promotion seemed to want Avalar to win. However, Fulton completely proved them wrong. In a relatively back-and-forth fight with Fulton somewhat in control, Fulton badly hurt Avalar downstairs and knocked him out in the 6th round. As a guy in Fulton who's not a puncher, it was very impressive to see him put away an undefeated prospect. After this, 5 months later, Stephen Fulton took on another undefeated prospect, taking on Arnold Kagai. Arnold Kagai was a nice pressure fighter with good power, with a good shin, who consistently came forward. This was expected to be another tough fight for Fulton, and it was, where Kagai had a lot of success, got Fulton on the ropes, was landing to the body, and was definitely putting up a fight. However, Fulton was the sharper of the two, with the better fundamentals of the two. He outboxed Kagai, he fought him very well, he looked sharp, he dug deep, he took over the later rounds, and Stephen Fulton won by a competitive but deserved 8-4, 9-3 unanimous decision victory. After this victory, there was some doubt in how good Stephen Fulton was. People knew Fulton was a good fighter. However, he did have some issues in most of his bouts. He gave away some rounds against Avalar. He had a tough fight with Kagai. He had a majority decision to Adam Lopez. He isn't necessarily dominating anyone. And when he finally gets his first title shot against another undefeated fighter, very respectable, champion at the weight class in Angelo Leo, a lot of people were picking Leo to win the fight, including myself. Leo was looking very strong. He was looking very powerful, looking very hungry and determined, threw a lot of punches, and fought very well on the inside. What people expected to happen in this fight was one of two things. Either Stephen Fulton would keep the fight on the outside and outbox Angelo Leo to a decision, or Leo would get on the inside, and once he got on the inside, the fight would be over, and he would outwork Fulton to a decision. Fulton completely proved everyone wrong. He banged with Leo on the inside, willingly fought Angelo Leo's fight, and yes, for the first half of the fight, it was pretty competitive. It definitely wasn't easy for Fulton. However, as the fight played out, he started to get more and more comfortable, landing the cleaner, crisper shots as it played out, and looking more and more dominant and more comfortable. After a 12-round entertaining matchup, with Fulton pretty much in control in the second half, Stephen Fulton was granted the unanimous decision victory and has won his first world title. After this victory, people are starting to realize that Fulton is the goods and the respectable name. 10 months later, he unified for the first time in his career, taking on another undefeated champion, Brandon Figueroa. Now, Brandon Figueroa was a fighter who had some doubt, just like Fulton, before Fulton beat Angelo Leo. He had some tough fights in his career. He had a draw with Julio Ceja. Many people felt he lost that fight. He's just coming off a big win against Luis Neri, but that fight was not a walk in the park for Figueroa, as he got buzzed early on and traded throughout the fight and was definitely giving away a lot of rounds. He's a guy who would have issues in virtually all of his fights. He had some issues early on against Damian Vasquez. He had some issues against Jonfrez Parejo. He had some issues against Oscar Escandon. So he's not a guy that was dominating everyone he would take on. And people knew that Fulton was actually the favorite this time. People expected him to win. However, Brandon Figueroa came to win. It was the best performance of Figueroa's career without doubt. He made the fight very difficult for Fulton. He got him on the ropes, he outworked him for a lot of the fight, and made it a true back and forth, and a fringe fight of the year contender. It was a very good matchup. However, Fulton did just enough to get the victory. He picked the spots just well enough, landed a lot of clean, crisp shots, kept Figueroa at bay just enough, and ended up winning a competitive and very tough and somewhat disputed majority decision victory. This was without doubt the toughest fight of Stephen Fulton's career, and the closest fight he's had in his career. However, Fulton did what he had to do to get the win. He won just enough rounds and got the majority decision. Once again, a little bit of doubt is being put on Stephen Fulton's name. This was a fight that was disputed, with some people saying that Figueroa actually deserved the victory. As you see in Fulton's career, it has fluctuated how people have viewed him. At times, he was viewed as a decent prospect. At times, he was viewed as a decent contender. At times, he was viewed as a solid champion. At times, he was viewed as an excellent champion. And at times, he was viewed as a shaky champion. But overall, Fulton has shown that he knows how to get the victory. He knows how to get the job done. In his next bout, 7.5 months later, he took on very respected Daniel Roman. Daniel Roman was the definition of a respected fighter in his weight class. He was a former unified champion, losing his belts to Murujan Akhmadaliev in a split decision, in a great fight, in a fringe fight of the year contender in 2020. People knew Daniel Roman had the goods. They knew he was a respected name. And a lot of people were picking him to either beat or give Fulton a very difficult fight. Now, the fight was definitely tougher for Fulton than the scores suggest. It was definitely closer than the scorecards had it. The scorecards, in my opinion, were borderline an abomination. Genuinely an abomination, if we're being honest. However, there was no doubt in my mind that Stephen Fulton clearly won this fight and looked very good doing so. I would straight up say that this was Stephen Fulton's best performance of his career. This and the Angelo Leo one. The reason I would say the Roman one is slightly better than the Angelo Leo one is because Angelo Leo was still a virtually unknown contender. He had a belt, but he never took on anyone too respected aside from maybe Tremaine Williams, who wasn't that respected because he still was also in his own right a prospect. Daniel Roman took on a lot of guys. He arguably, in some people's minds, defeated Murujan Akhmadaliev. Now, I had Akhmadaliev winning, but it was a very tough fight for him. Fulton was the first guy in a very long time to comfortably beat Roman. He looked very sharp. He was countering him to death. He was outworking him. He was avoiding and evading most of his work and looked very good. When I look at Roman's resume, his first loss was a split decision early on in his career. His second loss was a very close unanimous decision. His third loss was a split decision to Murujan. And this time, he actually virtually got schooled. Stephen Fulton has had a very strong rise. He's been very dominant. Not fully dominant. He's had some roadblocks, specifically the Brandon Figueroa fight where many people felt he lost. I personally had a draw, but it was a tough fight for Fulton. He's had his roadblocks, but he's overcame them, and he is one fight away from being a genuine pound-for-pound star. Many people have him on their pound-for-pound list already. I have him just below the top 10. I feel he needs that one more win to get it. He does have a very good resume in his last 3 fights, as he's Angelo Leo, Brandon Figueroa, and Daniel Roman. And now he's facing what many people consider the pound-for-pound number 1 guy, at worst, second or third pound-for-pound level fighter in Naoya Inoue. Fulton has proven time and time again he's willing to fight anyone. He's willing to fight the best. His rise to the top has been very impressive. And I believe when it's all said and done, Fulton will be a very respected name in the sport of boxing and will have built up a very good career for himself. It'll be very interesting to see how Fulton does against Naoya Inoue, how he deals with his pressure, how he deals with his work rate and his power. It'll be the truest test of Stephen Fulton's career, and he's got to bite down and dig deep to pull it off.